known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much. And she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?
That was Donald Trump earlier today at an event with the National Association of Black Journalists, where he questioned Vice President Kamala Harris's racial identity. Joining us now to weigh in on this and other factors in this campaign, Democratic Congressman Emanuel Cleaver of Missouri, who we should note is former chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. Congressman, it's great to have you with us. Welcome back to Bloomberg. I'm not really sure where to begin. Is it possible for someone to become black?
Yes, it's relatively easy. The chances of having an African American baby is if two African Americans procreate. And the other thing that I think in this context is that I've had a chance to make 2 phone calls. I'm going to make some more. I'm hoping that the media will ask the former president if he can give them the source of his charge that she has only recently declared that she was black. And I called a Jewish friend of mine in California and another political person, and neither of them had ever heard anything about this. Now, the president said he had known her indirectly for years and years. I know Taylor Swift. I mean, I've known her indirectly for years and years and years. And I think that we are in a really awful situation. I mean, what the president said, and I don't think he gets it, and I hope somebody close to him will explain it. It was offensive, it was racially raunchy, and it was not becoming of a head of state. And I'm just so sad. I know a lot of people are pleased. I've had people say it to me since the statements were made by the former president. Well, this is great. This will allow the people in the middle who've not chosen which side they're going to go to in November to see the guy for who he is. It makes me sad. I'm not pleased at all that someone could reach the level that the president's made, both in terms of his personal wealth and his political rise to the presidency, and who would say something like this. So, you know, it's not a healthy day for the Republic.
Well, and of course, that's not all he said, Congressman. He also repeated something we've heard from him before about migrants stealing black jobs. Is there such a thing as black jobs?
I've been looking for those black jobs. I don't know if you're supposed to wear all black. You know, we have black parties where everybody wears black, and there are some white parties everybody wears white. I'm not sure if he's talking about people who would serve food, waiters or something at a black party. I'm not sure exactly what he's talking about. I hope I'm not missing what a lot of people believe. Some of my friends is that he's trying to create some friction between the black and the brown community, and have some ill-informed people believing that they could be the CEO of Hallmark Cards in Kansas City or H&R Block in Kansas City, but somebody who just came in across the border, who's been in our country for 3 or 4 days, is going to take that job from you. You were going to get that job, and now it's gone to someone who just crossed the border. Because when they talk like that, they also say, well, the Democrats are bringing them across the vote. And there are a lot of people who actually believe that you can cross the border and register to vote and then participate in the election in November. I mean, we are the most powerful nation on the planet. We are the most highly educated population on this planet. And this stuff that we're talking about is like principal ignorance. And I'm embarrassed, I'm hurt, but I am at least somewhat happy over the fact that we heard the president reveal exactly who he is.
With that in mind, Congressman, we're out with a new poll here at Bloomberg, along with our partners at Morning Consult. And we spoke earlier today with Eli Oakley, politics analyst at Morning Consult, about the importance of black voters knowing this narrative that this could be the demographic to bring Donald Trump back to the White House. Here's what Eli said.
I think the most interesting figures there are the people most impacted. This have been black voters. That's such a core key constituency for Democrats to be able to win elections. Having black voters more fired up this time around is only a positive step.
He was speaking with regard to the basically brand new Kamala Harris campaign. I guess the question, Congressman, is did Donald Trump lose the black vote today?
He lost some black votes today. There's no question about it. I think it'll take 3 or 4 days before what the president said can circle all around the country and go into the homes of African Americans. And also, I believe enough in America to believe that whether a person is brown or white, this is offensive. And I think he's not only going to lose some of the African American vote, but he's going to lose votes, period. Not far from my office here in Kansas City, Missouri, it's a nice community, and it's a racially mixed community. And I would dare say that if there was anybody up there thinking about voting for the president, they ain't now.